Our story begins in a time long, long ago. In the soft hush between day and night, she walks the way it does for deer or wandering cats, not out of fear, but reverence. Isolde walks the winding path of her garden, lighting one lantern at a time. The lanterns hang from iron hooks and branches, and every plant in her garden, every leaf and bud, has a purpose. Nestled near herbs with names old and soothing, valerian, sweet, marjoram, they sway ever so slightly in the breeze, casting sleepy little shadows. She carries a lantern, made not of glass, but horn, thinly shaved until it glows with a golden warmth. Inside it, a single beeswax candle flickers. Lady Isolde, barefoot, always barefoot in the garden, for she says, the earth listens better that way. The grass bends softly beneath her feet each evening, just after the sun dips below the western ridge. Herbs are more than just beautiful, though. This is a healing garden, a place of soft remedies and moonlit magic. The night is full now, full and slow and soft. The kind of night that wraps around the skin like velvet. The kind where you forget what day it was and don't mind at all. Lady Isolde remains by the ash tree for some time, the lantern beside her swaying ever so gently. The flame inside it dances slowly, never tall. A quiet, golden pulse in the blue of the horn. She breathes in deeply. There it is again. Little sachets tied with flax string, each filled with dried petals and herbs chosen by feel and scent. Lavender and rose for sleep, lemon verbena for soft thoughts, and a few tiny shavings of sweetwood bark for warmth of heart. There for anyone who finds them. A castle maid on an early walk, a page boy who wakes too early, or perhaps no one at all. That's the beauty of it. Sometimes gifts aren't meant to be claimed. Sometimes they're just meant to exist, like stars, or dew, or soft dreams. No one remembers. She tucks one sachet beneath a lantern near the basil, another by the lemon balm, and the last beneath a rosemary bush, the one that leans a little to the left, like it's listening to something you can't quite hear. Then she returns to the garden bench. It's old, carved from walnut wood, smooth with age, and softened by moss. Here, she rests. Her lantern rests beside her, and the breeze begins to carry stories. Not loud, not hurried, just a gentle clanging from the chapel tower, echoing through the hills like a lullaby, made of iron and air. It is Nonzur, perhaps Compline, the final call to prayer from monks and nuns across the valley. In medieval life, time was measured not by minutes, but by these sacred hours. Even sleep followed them. Isolde hears the bells and smiles faintly. It means that in the chambers above, the castle is quieting. Servants tucking into their straw-filled mattresses, guards sipping hot wine from tin cups. The steward's quill fall in silent at last. And here, below it all, Lady Isolde's world is still full of breath. She rises again, lantern in hand, and walks a smaller path now. A spiral of flat stones, leading to a circular bed of lunar herbs. That's what she calls them. All plants said to flower best under moonlight, or to carry dreams in their leaves. In the center of this bed is a small stone bowl filled with clear rainwater. Moonlight gathers in it like milk in a basin. Isolde kneels beside it and dips her fingers in. She touches a drop to her forehead, to her lips, to the center of her chest. Not a ritual from the church, but one older, a blessing passed down quietly through women who understood the world's quieter magics. She murmurs softly, by moon, by leaf, by dreams release, guide the restless into peace. It isn't a spell, just a wish, a soft one. That mixture of herbal warmth and cool airtime. Perhaps a touch of fennel, the dusty green of sage, and the sweetness of flower and clover. Long ago, this garden was a tangle of weeds and stone. It had been forgotten for nearly a generation, hidden behind ivy and thyme. But when Isolde came to the castle, newlywed and far from her childhood home, she asked for it. Let me bring it back. she had said. Let me make it grow again. And so she did. With bare hands and stubborn patience, she cleared the stones. She whispered to the seeds as she planted them. She tended each herb with the care of someone mending old lace. And over the seasons, it bloomed, not in grand, showy displays, but in quiet grace, the kind of beauty that invites you to pause, to listen, to breathe. Now, the garden speaks back to her in rustles and scent, in subtle nods of leaves. And Isolde listens, because she believes, as many in her time did, that the plants remember, somewhere in the far distance. Bells toll the night hour. Tonight, she'll leave small bundles beneath 3 of the lanterns. The garden has settled into silence. Not empty silence, but a full, comforting quiet. The warmth of the horn lantern beside her pulses gently, its light painting slow golden shapes across the walnut wood. She listens not with her ears alone. There's something sacred in this hour. In the old calendars, this was the witching hour. Though Lady Isolde doesn't fear it, in her world, the hour between midnight and morning isn't for wickedness, but for dreaming. But with her breath, her skin, her heartbeat, the way the plants do. In the old days, people hung fennel over doorways to ward off spirits. Isolde thinks perhaps it does the same for troubled thoughts, but powerful, balanced on a knife edge, and deserving of caution. No clouds, just an endless velvet tapestry of silver. In her grandmother's time, the stars had names not just of gods and saints, but of plants, of rivers, of dreams. She lets her mind drift among them, naming the ones she remembers. There is her of us. If a star said to bring clarity to push, there is thistle crown, which flickers brightest in times of quiet courage, and fever star, which fades and returns in perfect rhythm. Like breath, she watches them, feels her pulse slow, feels the bench cradle her weight. And just before she closes her eyes, she whispers to the garden, "Keep watch, my darlings. The world dreams through you." And with that, Lady Isolde sleeps. The lantern beside her still flickers. The owl still sings. And the garden breathes. Isolde lights a single lantern here, a small one, made from blackened horn. Its flame glows like a coal low and steady. She walks among the rows, murmuring softly. Not words of ownership, but a thanks, she continues. Each step gentle. Each breath slow. Now, and then she stops to relight a lantern, or to tuck a fallen blossom back into place. It's not duty. It's care. It's sacred. The kind that feels like being wrapped in an old woolen shawl, worn soft with time, carrying the scent of lavender and wood, low and wooden, bound in blackened iron. Its hinges so well oiled they make no sound when she opens it. Beyond lies a smaller garden. Few know about this one. It's where she grows the night herbs, plants that bloom only after sunset. They remind her that even dreams need depth, even rest needs shadow. She pauses beside a row of white datura, their trumpet flowers wide in the night air. She kneels. "Sleep deeply," she whispers, "but do not stray too far." It's not a warning, it's a kindness. Even dreams need a gentle tether, or that hold their fullest power in darkness. Datura, belladonna, henbane. She handles them carefully, with reverence. Back on the main path, she sees the garden is glowing even more now. The moon has climbed directly overhead. The lanterns seem to respond, flickering brighter, as if the light in the sky and the fire on the earth are having a quiet conversation. She walks one last circle, checking, listening, and then she returns to the bench, lowers the lantern, and exhales. The air is cool now, kissed with damp. She wraps a woolen shawl around her shoulders, dyed a soft rusty thread, embroidered with tiny stars, and she leans back, her gaze lifting toward the sky. Not because she fears them, but because she honors what they are. She steps inside and bows her head briefly, a gesture of respect. Lady Isolde remains on the bench, her eyes have pages made from vellum, so fine they sigh when turned. This is her garden ledger, not a book of accounts or orders, but a quiet record of her plantings, her thoughts, the whispers she's heard under moonlight. She opens to a blank page, dips her quill into the tiny pot of ink, kept inside a wooden box near the bench, and in slow, looping script, she writes, "The rosemary tilted east again, left sachets beneath 3 flames. Moon in full, air still sweet, foxglove listening well." She pauses, taps the quill once, then adds, "Owl arrived, felt known." She smiles faintly. Above her, the moon has risen higher, full and round, casting silver blue light that mingles with the golden lanterns, spilling across time leaves and dew-glazed stones. Not the steward, a soft, hollow note that vibrates gently through the chest. Isolde stands, slipping the book back into its place beside the bench. She lifts her lantern and walks the moon path now. A curved stone way. She laid herself with flat, river-smooth stones. It winds between taller herbs. Angelica fennel. These are the protectors of the garden, she believes. Tall and strong, with roots that anchor deep. They catch the wind first and bend gently with it, like guards keeping watch. Not the monks in the scriptorium, not even her husband, the kind and quiet Lord Emmerich, who sleeps soundly in the eastern tower, trusting her to this garden hour. The book isn't meant to be read, it's meant to be felt. Each word left like petals at the feet of the night. She reaches down beside the bench and lifts a small book bound in soft leather. No one else reads this. The owl calls again. She pauses at a fennel stalk and lets her hand trail its feathered leaves. They smell of anise and earth. In the far corner of the garden, there's a gate. In medieval herb lore, many believed such plants were neither good nor evil. These herbs do not heal in the way chamomile or lavender do, but in the way shadow heals light. By contrast, she stands again, brushes her hands together, and gently closes the garden gate behind her. The stars are out in full now. It's been quite a while since we met Lady Isolde in the castle garden. How is she, and how is the magic of her quiet craft? Tiny golden sparks, drifting like thoughts unspoken, little soul lanterns of the natural world. They bob and swirl between the herbs, lighting rosemary and rue, dancing between angelica stalks and valerian stems. They do not wake Lady Isolde. Then another. It carries the scent of the forest beyond the hills, pine and wild garlic, and a touch of lake mist. The stars turn. A robin calls soft. The very first signal that morning is not far. One lantern sputters. Its beeswax nearly spent. It flickers once. Then the dew begins to gather. On time leaves, on the bench, on the hem of Isolde's gown. Soon, the garden will begin to wake. The real waking. Not the hush of night, but the hum of bees, the flit of wings, the rustle of leaves in sun. But not yet. There is still time to rest, still time to dream. Lady Isolde's hand shifts slightly, as if reaching for something, or someone. In sleep, a curl of her hair moves with the breeze. The moth returns, pausing on the edge of the lantern glass, its wings pulsing slowly, and the garden keeps watch. The wind moves through the garden like a memory, gently swaying the lanterns, pressing cool fingers against Isolde's sleeping cheek. She shifts slightly, not waking, but dreaming. Deeper in her dream, the garden is singing, not in words, but in tone. Each herb has a voice. The basil hums low, like a lullaby. The thyme whispers sharp and bright. The rosemary's tone is clear, while the lavender holds a note long and true. Together, they create a chorus of scent and sound, a symphony beneath the skin. And Lady Isolde listens with her whole self. In her dream, she walks barefoot still, but now the garden glows with silver, not gold. Every leaf edged in moonlight, every shadow soft. She passes through archways made of ivy, kneels to bless a bed of sage, and smiles as a fox peeks out from behind the woodpile. The fox does not speak, but she knows its name. She dreams of her mother, and her mother's mother, and the line of women who tended earth with reverent hands and soft voices long before castles were raised. They stand in a circle of yarrow and marigold. They say nothing, but Lady Isolde understands. The garden is not hers. It never was. She is its guardian for a time. That is all. A moment of care in the long memory of the land. And that is enough. And another. Soon, only the embers and the hearths remain. The night is at its deepest. But outside, under the ash tree, Lady Isolde's lantern still burns. A moth flutters past it, drawn to the warmth, then moving on, as if respectful of the stillness in the air. And above, the stars have shifted again. The fever star pauses. Herba's eye gleams. Thistle crown winks low on the horizon. They are not just lights. Not here. To Lady Isolde and others who keep quiet, watch over herbs and shadows. The stars are part of the pattern. Like veins in a leaf, like root systems unseen. Each one threads into the rhythms of the garden, guiding the growth of plants, the timing of bloom and rest, even the weight of sleep. They don't need to. They hover as if watching over her, matching the rhythm of her breath with their slow, blinking light. In the quiet, something old stirs. Not a presence, but a knowing, a warmth at the roots of the garden, deep below time and stone, a memory in the soil itself. You see, this land has held many sleepers, many voices, and Lady Isolde, in her nightly tending, has become part of the earth's remembering. She sleeps, her breath rising and falling like the tide. The shawl around her shoulders shifts gently with the night breeze, and her hand rests beside a sprig of dried lavender fallen, as if the plant itself had leaned close to share a dream. A hedgehog, perhaps, or a mouse moving through mint leaves. The garden does not fear them. No traps are set. This place, after all, is not just a garden. It's a sanctuary. A wordless agreement hangs in the air here. Be still. Be kind. And you may stay. The creatures honor that. Even the spiders, web weavers between fennel stalks, string their silk with care, careful, never to block a path or snag a sachet. The garden is alive in its sleep, alive in a way that pulses through the stones beneath Isolde's bench, in the gentle rustling of rosemary when no wind touches it, in the bloom of a moonflower that opens soundlessly near the basin. The lanterns continue their slow burn. Not one has gone out. That's part of their craft. Each candle made by her hands, rolled from beeswax, blended with a touch of crushed lavender and ash bark, a secret she learned from a traveling apothecary who once stayed at the castle for 3 days and taught her more than many books had in years. She had listened as he explained how scent, when burned with purpose, could hold back nightmares and soften sorrow. So she added it, gently, to her own quiet rituals. And the garden glows on. From the edges of the ash tree, the first fireflies rise, a soft rustle near the stone path. Inside the castle, a candle gutters out. A breeze rolls in from the south. She sleeps on before the sun stretches its gold across the sky. The garden wakes. First, the blackbirds sing. As you can see, I've added a bit more detail to this one, including a character, Lady Isolde, and a time, the very first light of dawn. I encourage you to use the expanded prompt if you'd like, but please feel free to let your creativity bloom in any direction today. You might write about a secret garden, or a magical one, or a neglected one, or perhaps a garden in the middle of a bustling city. If you choose to write a story that includes a garden, please consider adding the line, "Gardens always remember," somewhere in your piece. I'm curious to see where you put those words. Of course, you don't have to include them if you don't want to. Then the fox slips through the ferns. Finally, Lady Isolde rises from her most cushioned bench. That's how our story starts. And now it's time for today's prompt. As always, this piece of flash fiction was inspired by a writing prompt. This week's prompt is gardens. And if you're feeling extra inspired, There's no pressure, but we're hoping you'll share your story in the comments below. We're also going to be sharing some of our favorite stories on social media throughout the week, so keep an eye out for those. And as always, if you'd like more writing inspiration delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for our free newsletter. Every Wednesday we send out story starters, writing prompts and book recommendations to help you make the most of your creativity. For those of you who prefer audio stories, we've got good news. Our podcast is now available on various platforms. Thanks so much for listening, and happy writing. The forest knows your name. Do you know hers? The answer lies not in lineage or looks, but in loyalty and love. She loves deeply, fiercely, and her heart's compass guides her hand to rule with kindness, not from a throne of gold, but from the core of daily living. Her touch is gentle, whether on weathered hands or tender sprouts. Her gaze, unwavering, meets every eye with honesty and grace. Her laugh rings clear, a melody that banishes shadows and weaves camaraderie. Her tears fall freely, a cleansing rain that nourishes the spirit. In her presence, even the stoic finds solace in the timid bloom bold. Her spirit is a beacon, drawing hearts weary from battles fought and tears silently shed. They come to her, not to unload burdens, but to share life's tapestry, woven with both light and shade. And she listens, not to gather gossip or plot, but to understand, to empathize, and to act. Her actions aren't dictated by crowns or coffers, but by the needs of those around her. So while noble scheme in gilded halls, she tends her garden, not just for beauty, but for sustenance, for healing, and for hope. Her knowledge is vast, gleaned not from scrolls alone, but from the wisdom of ages held in herb-crusted hands and sung by winds through ancient trees. She honors this knowledge, using it judiciously, not for showy displays, but for quiet acts of mercy and strength. In her, tradition and progress intertwine, guided not by fleeting whims, but by the North Star of what truly serves life. And in her service, though simple, is a nobility that transcends birthright. It's a nobility born of character, compassion, and a profound connection to the rhythms of existence. So no, her rule isn't gilded, but is genuine. It's rooted deep in the soil she tends, the people she nurtures, and the wisdom she embodies. This is a tale from a forgotten grove where shadows dance to ancient tunes, and the whisper of leaves holds secrets older than time. A shadow falls across the land. A chill wind whispers unease, and the serenity of the valley is challenged. However, Isolde doesn't retreat into the fortress of a haven. Instead, she ventures forth, not with weapons or guards, but with a pouch of seeds and a staff of gnarled wood. She walks with quiet determination, her steps sure, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She's not swayed by the howling winds or the menacing clouds gathering overhead. Her face, though creased with concern, is resolute, mirroring the steadfast mountains that guard their valley. She doesn't deny the darkness, but she refuses to let it engulf her. She leans into the tempest, seeking to understand its heart, to unravel the threads of its fury. Her touch, usually so gentle, hardens slightly as she examines cracked earths, withered plants, and listless animals. She doesn't falter. Her inner fire, usually so warmly radiant, now burns with intense focus. In her eyes, one sees not fear, but determination, not despair, but strategy. She gathers samples, broken branches, wilted leaves, and traces the path of the storm's passage. She questions the wind, the trees, the very stones, seeking their testimonies. She's not merely an observer. She's a participant, a problem solver, a healer. She doesn't wait for answers to come to her. She goes to them, braving the elements, facing the storm head-on. She's not just gathering information. She's forging a bond, a pact between herself and the untamed forces of nature. She speaks back to the wind, arguing with the tempest, challenging the darkness to reveal its essence. Her voice, though soft, carries the weight of her spirit, the depth of her connection to the land and its people. She doesn't seek to dominate or subdue. She seeks to harmonize, to balance, to understand. She's not fighting the storm. She's dancing with it, acknowledging its power, its pain, its purpose. And as the storm reaches its crescendo, so does her resolve. She stands tall, a beacon amidst the maelstrom, reaching out not with detachment, but with empathy. She embraces the chaos, becomes one with the tumult, and in that unity, she seeks the key to resolution. When day breaks, the castle wakes. Servants pad through shadowed halls, voices hushed, footsteps light. They go about their tasks with practiced ease, yet eyes downcast. For within these four gray walls, there's a silence deeper than stone, a hush that steals the song from birds and sap from trees. Even the wind forgets its tune. Here, greetings are ghosts and smiles, a luxury, all except one. For, in a towel bathed in sun, Lady Isolde stirs. Her chamber is a haven, not grand, but graced with light. Herbs dry in corners, books rest on windowsills, and sunlight spills across the floor in patterns that shift and gleam. As she rises, a stir of movement, a rustle of skirts, a silent grace. The years have etched lines on her face, yet her eyes hold starlight. No mask of courtly smiles or practiced grace. Here, honesty resides. And when she steps out onto the terrace, the castle's hush seems to lift. A breath of wind ruffles her hair, stirring leaves to a whisper. And as she gazes out at the distant hills, a smile touches her lips. It's small, yet in that curve of mouth, the whole world finds solace. She turns then, drawn by a scent sharp and sweet, a summons from the earth itself. She walks with purpose down the twisting stairs, past suits of armor frozen in mid-stride, their visors like blind eyes staring into emptiness. The castle groans, settles, sighs, but follows her intent. The kitchens are her haven, her solace, her delight, not in marble or gold, but in worn flagstones and rafters, bowed by age. Here, the rhythm of life beats strong and sure. Fires crackle, pots sing, and the air thrums with purpose. An onion peels, a knife sings against board, a sprinkle of salt, a whispered word, each action known, each step assured. Here, even the shadows have their place, dancing in sunlit squares, or stretching long and thin across the hearth. And when she kneels before the work table, all eyes turn to her, not in deference, not in fear, but in kinship, in shared purpose, in understanding. They are not just servants toiling under a crown's command, but fellow travelers on life's winding road. And as the hours pass, they work not for wages or rank, but for the joy of creation, the satisfaction of craft, the comfort of a shared endeavor. For in this kitchen, Lady Isolde isn't a title, but an ally, a friend, a sister. The castle may slumber, but here life pulses, laughter echoes, stories unfold, and dreams find nourishment. When the midday bell tolls, it's a summons, not to duty, but to respite. They gather then, not in ranks or rows, but in a circle, bound by ties stronger than blood or birth. For here, in this humble space, they share not just meals, but moments, memories, and magic. For this is no ordinary place. It's a sanctuary woven with purpose, compassion, and the quiet strength of those who stand not apart, but together. But why does she draw so much devotion? What makes her different from others in a world of titles and power? But all is not serene in this secluded haven. The sun is now high in the sky, but here, in Lady Isolde's herb solarium, lined with soft linen dyed in woad blue, a well in the square, and smoke curling in soft gray ribbons from hearth chimneys. No one rushes here. Even the chickens walk with measured pace. The healer's cottage sits at the edge, its windows framed with ivy, and bundles of drying fennel hung neatly beside the door. Lady Isolde knocks once, then steps inside. The air smells of elder bark, beeswax, and lemon balm. Old Anwin, the village healer, sits in a wide oak chair, braiding nettle stalks, with hands gnarled but nimble. Her face breaks into a smile when she sees us. "The Lantern Lady," she says, as if naming a character from a folktale. They share tea poured from a clay pot shaped like a gourd. Lady Isolde offers her gift, and when nods, places the herbs in small wooden drawers marked with ash runes. No words are needed. Here, knowing passes without sound. The afternoon slips by, marked only by shifting shadows across the wooden floor. Before she leaves, Lady Isolde places a small coin on the windowsill, an old custom, not for payment, but for blessing. Coins placed with intention were said to carry messages to the spirits of the land, especially if left facing east. She turns homeward then, basket empty, but soul full. She places inside the sachet of dried rose petals. On the way back, she takes a longer path, passing through an ancient orchard. The trees here grow close, their trunks twisted with age, branches tangled like old storylines. Apples hang low, green and gold, their skin warmed by sun. She picks just one and sits beneath the largest tree, its bark soft with moss, its branches arching like a cathedral ceiling. She eats slowly, juice sweet and tart on her tongue, and she listens. Not for birds, not for wind, but for the quiet, that deep, echoing stillness that only trees know. Evening will come again, as it always does, and with it, lanterns will glow once more. But for now, there is just the orchard, and the hush, and a lady in a russet gown, gathering the last pieces of a gentle day, a sprig of angelica, and a pot of honey steeped with chamomile and sage, a gift for the village healer. She walks the garden path slowly, sandaled feet brushing clover and creeping thyme. The gate creaks gently as it opens, a sound like an old friend sighing. The village lies beyond the eastern grove, down a winding trail lined with beech trees and low stone walls covered in moss. As she walks, the wind moves through the branches overhead, creating a hush like pages being turned in an unseen book. Birdsong follows her, but not in a chorus, just one robin, then a chittering squirrel, then the wings of a dove brushing past, each sound spaced with perfect stillness. The path leads over a stream, its water clear and glass cool. Lady Isolde pauses on the little stone bridge. Below, fish flicker like silver ribbons. On the other side, a child's laughter echoes, a soft, delighted giggle that dances through the air and fades like mist. She smiles. Children are closer to dreams. They hear the old stories in wind and water, even when grown ears do not. The light softens as it falls through panes of stained glass. Teal, amber, and rose. Shadows of colored leaves dance across the tiled floor. The air is warm but never heavy. It smells of thyme, sunlit stone, and a faint sweetness of elderflower tea. Lady Isolde, sitting quietly at her oaken table, gathers together her writing tools. A quill trimmed from a barn owl's feather, ink darkened with walnut husk, and a narrow scroll made from cured sheep parchment. She writes only one name. It is not her own. Today, she writes a letter, not to send, not by bird, nor by messenger, but to preserve. Some letters, you see, are not for eyes. They are for memory, for the spirit, for the garden soil and the wind safe. She writes to her grandmother, Lady Eleanor, once a keeper of the lantern garden before her, who taught Isolde that rosemary remembers and time protects, and that lantern light carries wishes better than any word. The letter flows like she writes of last night's fireflies, and the moon-soaked mushroom, and Moran's curious eyes. She writes of the fox's tracks, and the soft glow of saffron sky. Her hand does not hurry. Each line breathes. Each word rests between the necks like stones in a peaceful river. The final line is a blessing, written in elder tongue. Where your roots still grow, my hands will tend. She rolls the scroll gently, ties it with indigoted ribbon, and places it within the carved cedar box that rests on the southern windowsill. There are many such letters inside, each wrapped in silence, each kept with love. Outside, a bell rings once, then twice. Not urgent. Not an alarm. Just a marking of time. It is midday, and with it comes a soft responsibility. Lady Isolde lifts a basket, woven from bramble cane, past the stream. The village appears, just a cluster of thatched cottages. The wind has shifted, cooler now, with a hint of pine. This is a tale as old as the orchard itself. The orchard's hush folds gently around her, like the hem of a velvet cloak brushing mossy ground. Lady Isolde leans her head back against the old apple tree's trunk, and through the canopy of curling branches above, the sky glows like burnished silver, drowsy light, clouds like brushed wool. She closes her eyes not to sleep, but to listen more fully, to the hum of life that speaks without sound, the shifting of bark, the breathing of the wind, the whisper of small insects moving through clover. She recalls her grandmother's voice, low, and even when you rest in a place long enough, it will tell you its name. Isolde breathes deeply. The orchard smells of cider and old wood. Its name, perhaps, is something like patience or old joy. She sits a while longer, then rises without hurry, dusts off the folds of her gown russet, brushed with early leaf fall, and returns to the winding path. The lantern garden awaits. Back through the grove she walks, light filtering through the trees in long ribbons of saffron and umber. A stag appears between the trunks, not startled, not bold, just watching, its antlers crowned with spider silk, its breath rising in little curls. They hold each other's gaze, then it turns, vanishes like mist. She nods once in old courtesy. In Thales, to see the stag at dusk was to be blessed for the night ahead. The castle rises at the forest's edge, stone warmed by the last of the day's light, ivy tracing its old shoulders like adjourned jewelry. From the tower, the first bell of evening sounds, a note as soft as moonlight through lace. Isolde enters through the garden gate, its iron handle smooth from generations of hands. The herbs greet her, though they do not speak in words. Their presence feels alive, as though the very leaves lean toward her in welcome. She sets the empty basket by the door and walks to the old sundial. There, beside it, sits a basin of water caught from the morning's dew, still cold beneath its mirrored surface. She dips her fingers in coolness, traveling up her arms like a slow river, a cleansing. It is time to prepare the lanterns. From a small chest, she draws each one carefully. Tiny, delicate things, made of polished horn and bees. Each lantern has a carved wooden base, with designs that vary. A crescent moon, a sprig of sage, a leaping hare. She polishes the horn walls with a cloth dipped in rose oil. The scent calms the hands. Then she trims the wicks, prepares the wax, and gathers a taper to light them. As twilight deepens, the garden becomes a hush of purples and silvers. The lanterns glow one by one, their gentle light chasing away shadow, not harshly, but like lullabies, dispelling dreams too heavy for sleep. Isolde walks barefoot on the stone path, the warmth of the day still held in the stones, each step a soft rhythm. She places lanterns among the lavender, beside the thyme, and beneath the elder tree, whose trunk bends as though listening to her every movement. Each light has meaning, each position an old pattern, passed down like stitching on a worn cloak. The garden lights are more than beauty. They are protection, remembrance, invitation, a spell, but not a magic of wands or runes, a magic of presence. By the time the final lantern is lit, the sky is a velvet dome. Stars blink into being, one by one. The wind hushes, even the birds hold still. Isolde breathes in the night's hush. She whispers the garden's blessing aloud. Just once the same words spoken every evening since she was 16. Let this place be peace. She turns and sees Marin, apprentice, standing by the bench, holding a bundle of wool blankets dyed with indigo and madar root. Without a word, Marin lays them out. They sit together, side by side, the lanterns casting golden halos on their faces. They do not speak for a long time, and yet So much is said in the quiet. Crickets begin their night chatter. The occasional breeze stirs the Maren places a dried cornflower between the pages of her herb journal. Lady Isolde smiles. Tell me something old. Maren whispers. Isolde thinks for a moment, then replies softly. There was once a time when people believed rosemary could carry your thoughts to the one you missed. She leans forward, picks a sprig from the bush nearby, and hands it to Maren. Sleep with it near your pillow, she adds, and you might dream of someone far away. Maren tucks it gently into her braid. Above them, the moon rises full tonight, and silvery as pearl. Its light mingles with the lanterns, creating a shimmer across the garden path like frost made of gold. Lady Isolde's voice lowers. Tonight is a wishing night. She points to a star just above the elder tree. Do you see it? Maren nods. Good. Isolde smiles. Wish softly, and let the wind do the rest. Lady Isolde's cottage is tucked away at the very end of a path, lined with herbs, a place where gnarled branches twist toward the heavens and sun-warmed stones whisper secrets to the breeze. Tonight, though, its windows are dark, its door closed tight, but a few steps away, a circle of lanterns glows warmly in the gathering dusk, and there before them, laid out on a weathered blanket, are Maren and Lady Isolde. Maren rests her chin on her knees, eyes following the flicker of each flame. The lanterns breathe with the breeze, as if alive, their tiny fires nodding gently toward the night. Lady Isolde's hands are folded in her lap, her fingers still scented faintly of lavender and oil. May I ask, Maren's voice is soft, how the lantern garden began? Isolde leans back, her eyes half closed, as though the memory sits just beyond the next breath. It was the year the sickness came, she begins quietly, the one that carried many away, even those we thought so young or too strong to go. The breeze hushes my sister, Eleanor. She was only 10, and she loved this garden. She knew every plant by its proper name and its playful one. A pause, a swallow. Isolde looks down at her folded hands. When she passed, I began placing a light for her each evening, just at the edge of the sage patch, so she wouldn't be afraid of the dark. Maren's hand brushes gently against Isolde's. They sit in silence, watching the lanterns. Soon Isolde continues, her voice like the slow burn of a candle wick. Others asked if I might light one for their loved ones. A light for a mother lost in the last frost of winter, or a husband never returned from the She gestures toward the far end of the path. Each flame remembers someone, and now, Maren asks, now we light them, not only to remember, but to honor the presence that remained, the love that lingers, the peace that waits quietly for us to notice. The elder tree creaks softly in the wind, like a low, slow lullaby. Maren lies back on the blanket, gazing up into the endless black sky sprinkled with stars like sifted flour on a bakeress table. Lady Isolde lies beside her, their shoulders just touching. Do you believe, Maren whispers, that the lights carry our words, our thoughts, to them? Isolde's smile is slow and tender. I believe the garden listens, and I believe the garden remembers. The fireflies begin to gather, their silent gold and blinking weaving with the lantern glow. They trace patterns across the time. Beds rise toward the elder tree and spiral upward into the velvet sky. A soft rustle. The gray cat, Thistle, pads toward them from the shadows. Tail curled like a question mark, he settles at Isolde's feet, purring low and steady, his body a warm weight, grounding her in the moment. The night deepens. A single owl calls from the far hill. Another answers faintly, like a lullaby, sung from a far-off tower. Lady Isolde hums softly again, the same tune she sang while lighting the lanterns. A melody older than the castle, older than any tale she knows. Maren listens, eyes fluttering closed, as the tune wraps itself around her like wool. There is a feeling in the garden, a settling, like the last page of a book turned, or the final note of a song held until it fades to silence. Lady Isolde rises, gathering the spent tapers. She moves without urgency. Some nights, she walks the paths until dawn. Other nights, like this one. She lets the garden hold its own stillness. She lifts one of the lanterns. Its light, soft and steady. The beeswax, casting a scent of warmth and honey. She walks to the rosemary hedge, sets the lantern at its base, and kneels beside it. Her lips move in a whisper. Not a prayer. Not quite a spell. Just a thought-given voice, as the wind carries it away. When she returns to the blankets, Marin is already breathing in the rhythm of sleep. Lady Isolde tucks the edge of the blanket over her shoulder, brushes a loose curl from her brow. The lanterns will keep her safe. The garden will keep her dreaming. Then Isolde walks to the bench near the sundial and sits with her lantern above her. The stars seem to pulse with light, as if they, too, are breathing. She closes her eyes, and in the hush she listens. The herbs rustle in their sleep. The wind carries secrets, too soft to name. The flames glow on, steady and true, and peace wraps itself around the garden, like an old friend who needs no words. Welcome to the Lantern Garden, a place where magic lingers in the moonlight, and memories take root among the herbs and flowers. The hour is late, so late, it almost forgets to be part of night, a time that belongs to neither yesterday nor today, but rather to the space in between. Lady Isolde remains on the bench by the sun, her eyes fixed not on the stars, but on the shadows that sway gently across the garden path. They are not frightening shadows. They are soft ones. Shadows made by rosemary stems, swaying by time, flowers nodding, by old trees stretching in their sleep. A cool breeze kisses her cheeks. The garden exhales. She sighs, long and low. There is no need to speak aloud here. In the Lantern Garden, even silence has ears. Behind her, from one of the castle's towers, a candle flickers out. She watches as the light disappears behind a shutter closed against the chill. Somewhere, a page turns. Somewhere, a hearth is stirred. And somewhere else, a dream takes root. Isolde lets her head fall back against the bench, gazing once more at the moon, now high and silver pure above the elder tree. The moon, she thinks, is the garden's oldest guest. It has seen each lantern lit, year after year, life after life, and it never forgets. In the distance, a fox ships once, a soft, lonely sound. Not sad, exactly, just small. Honest. Isolde smiles. Even the fox is part of the hush tonight. She rises again, walks barefoot once more to the path. The stones have cooled. She can feel each edge, each dip, like braille for the feet. She walks slowly. There is no need to rush when the whole world is asleep. She pauses by the sage bush. Its leaves, silvery, soft, strong. Sage for wisdom, for cleansing, for memory. She picks a single leaf and rolls it gently between her fingers. A scent rises, earthy and comforting. Like books bound in linen, like freshly raked earth, like the hush of a chapel with no sermon. She tucks the leaf into her sleeve. At the far end of the garden, where the lanterns are fewer and the stars feel closer, she kneels beside the stone marker. A small, simple slab. No name carved, just a carving of a willow tree. She places a lantern there, just as she has every night for 20 years. "Good night, Eleanor," she whispers. There are no tears tonight, only a warmth like candlelight against the ribs, a gentle ache. Because remembering here is not bitter, it is part of the tending. Just as the lanterns are, just as the rosemary is, just as she is. She stays there on her knees, letting the night air wrap around her like a shawl. The willow above her stirs. It drops one leaf onto her lap. Quiet, golden, deliberate. She smiles, touches it once, and lets it rest where it falls. Footsteps approach soft ones. Familiar. Marin, wrapped in her indigo shawl, eyes half asleep, smiles as she kneels beside her mentor. "I dreamed of a stag," she murmurs. Isolde nods slowly. "It found you then." Moran's voice is a thread. It bowed to me. A pause. Is that good? Isolde's smile is a flickering thing. It means it recognized your light. They sit together, watching the lanterns glow, dance over the stone marker, casting long shadows behind the willow roots. No one speaks. They don't need to. In the lantern garden, even quiet can bloom. Eventually, she stretches not fully, not harshly, just enough to remind her body that it belongs to the world. She and Marin walk the path once more, checking the lanterns, replacing any that flicker low. They move in rhythm, like dancers in a slow, quiet waltz. Near the rosemary hedge, Marin pauses. What do we do with the lanterns come morning? Isolde tilts her head. Some we leave to burn out, some we gather, so the glass and horn may rest for another night. And the wax, it's melted into offering bowls beneath the elder. The plants remember it. They feed on that memory. Marin nods, eyes wide, like a storybook has come to life. In the center of the garden, they sit once more, a place where for old paths cross, each pointing to a season. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Tonight, the path of autumn glows brightest. The lanterns there are deepest gold. They're like dancing like harvest fire. Isolde traces the stones with her finger. This was once called the turning circle, she murmurs, where questions were asked and answers arrived in time. What sort of questions? Isolde smiles. The ones you already know, but need help remembering. Marin places her hand on one of the stones. It's warm, still, from the day's sun. She closes her eyes. She does not speak her question aloud. She only thinks it, and somewhere, in the rustle of the grass, a breeze carries something back. Not words, but knowing. It's a little after 4 a.m., and I'm making tea. That sounded silly. I thought about saffron rice and chicken tagine and a whole roasted pig with applesauce. Every morning before the sun rises, sometimes the greatest strength isn't the ability to endure, but the power to heal. And remember, sometimes the greatest magic is found in the ordinary. Sometimes the greatest magic isn't found in the impossible, but in the ordinary. When I finished my tea, it was time to go to bed. As I lay down in the darkness, I thought about the woman who cooked magic breakfasts. I imagined her sitting by the fire, sipping her lavender tea, surrounded by the ghosts of generations past. I imagined her hands, gnarled and strong, stirring the pot, whispering the secrets of the universe. I imagined her garden, filled with herbs and flowers and the laughter of children. For a moment, everything was right in the world. There was no war, no famine, no death. There was only the fire, the tea, the garden, the woman, and I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me. She wakes up and she makes food that doesn't just nourish the body, but heals the soul. She uses herbs that she grows herself and recipes that have been passed down through generations. Her specialty is a type of tea made with lavender, nettle, and balm. It smells like memory, she says, and it tastes like home. This story didn't come from a newswire or an Associated Press feed. It came to me in a flash of inspiration in the middle of the night. In a way, it was exactly what I needed. I wanted it all. Last night, these were the stories we brought you. We talked about the wildfires in Maui and how they've killed at least 114 people. We talked about the reality TV star who pleaded guilty to murder and the NASA astronaut who died on a training mission. These were important stories, serious stories, tragic stories, and I felt grateful that we gave them the attention they deserved on our show. But now I wanted something different. Now I wanted a change of pace, so I let my mind drift to imaginary feasts. And that's when I found this story. Of course, it's after 4 a.m. Can tell by the clock on the wall, and the fact that my eyes are open and my brain is awake. Sometimes when I get to work late, which is often, I'll pour myself a cup of hot water and black tea and sit down to try to read the news for missed items that we may have used in our show or may want to cover online. It's usually dull as dishwater, so I end up staring into the swirling steam and letting my mind wander. This happened last night. I was thinking about what I would cook if I had all the ingredients in the world. If money were no object, If I could hire a personal shopper and a private chef, if I could have any cookbook in the world delivered instantly, what would I make? A feast. I think I'd make a feast. I was thinking about honey cakes and cinnamon snails and puff pastry tarts laden with berries and cream. This is the story of the woman who cooks magic breakfasts. Sometimes the most restorative stories aren't the ones that break your heart, but the ones that mend it. This is the host. This is the Midnight